is Ron Winship, and with my wife Anna, we have been honored to bring you some of the most interesting shows over the last 5 years, interviewing some of the most important people in our country and around the world too, along with our stalwart compatriot and investigative reporter Larry Gilbert. We've gone out in the field and we've interviewed people the way we would like to have people interviewed, rather than what you see on the major media around the country. We're trying something new today. Our On the Road series is the one that we refer to here, but we're going to start something new called On Target. And the reason why we're doing this is because of the fact that on major media you see stories about Aruba and lost girls. You see a lot of things that don't necessarily impact your life in a great way. As a result of that fact, we decided to take it upon ourselves to bring you some of the more important issues of the day and really get into them the way you'd like to see them on national television. Because of the fact that you can view our shows on our archive, you can go back and see this show hopefully years in the future. So at any rate, we're going to start this show called On Target and In the Crosshairs, and those will be the issues of the day. Now I'm going to turn the show over to our stalwart, as I mentioned, investigative reporter Larry Gilbert.
Ron, I got to tell you that there's been some big stories that have been in the press of late. May not get the kind of coverage that we typically would give, such as this withdrawal from Gaza, which is part of this disengagement. And a lot of people probably don't realize the history. All they know is they can only read back for 24 to 48 hours and then their memory gets foggy. It really started back in 1967 when Egypt shut down.
Let me, before I'm going to break in here now, before we jump into that issue, which is a big one, we're going to talk about another couple of issues, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so tell me about the second and third issues we might want to discuss.
Another hot issue of late is the status of the war in Iran.
Right.
Iraq, I should say, and Cindy Sheehan and her protest.
Okay.
And what that means to keeping this story alive.
All right.
The president's reaction to it.
Right.
Another key area that's of concern, and Arnold tried to deal with it, was the state of the pensions, the defined benefit pensions that government employees are getting, which may end up bankrupting quite a few cities around the country.
Maybe our country. Okay, let's talk about this disengagement. Tell us what are the facts involved in here.
Well, this is a real risk that's been taken by Israel because there's no commitment from the other side, and it's an attempt to show good faith, I think, to the president by pulling back from Gaza. Now, in Gaza, as you know, there's maybe 8,000, or there were about 8,000 settlers had moved in there,
right,
and took barren land and ended up putting up homes. And they've been there since 1960.
Oceanfront property.
Yes, it's oceanfront property.
Right.
They got farms and they have other forms of
A
industry.
lot of agriculture there is there.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they have it. They irrigated it, and they took a desert and made something of it.
Made it bloom.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
But the
so why are they moving out now?
Well, they're moving out because they feel that security is a factor. Half of the attacks against Israel in this intifada for the past 5 years have all been in the Gaza area. And I guess they felt that with a million or so Palestinians living there and only 8,500 settlers, maybe this would be one token of a withdrawal to satisfy public opinion.
Peace offering, public relations scam.
You know, it's interesting. They took over the West Bank.
Right.
Took over the Golan Heights. And there's people...
Wait a minute. Now let's put this in proper perspective. In the 1967 war is when Israel just really kicked butt, didn't they? I mean, they took the Sinai, they took the Golan Heights, which was next to Lebanon and to Syria, and then which secured that water up there in that area, and then they took over the West Bank and Gaza, didn't they? They took it all.
And what triggered is they were prodded into doing this by Nasser, the president at the time of Egypt,
right,
where he shut down their access through the Turan, the water of where they had the oil coming in from their partner Iran and other goods coming in from Asia.
Right.
They were blockaded, which was against a UN resolution.
Okay, now let's speed forward here. They took all of this land, but what people don't really realize is that on top of those 8,500 people that were in Gaza, which isn't many, really.
True, that's true.
But you've got 400,000 there in the West Banks and scattered villages all over the place, and they're only going to take out like 4 villages out of the 118 that are there, right?
That's the plan.
Okay, so let's get this in proper perspective here. They made a big deal out of the fact that all this, what the Israelis were going to give up in order to make peace with the Palestinians.
Right.
But in all due fairness, I mean, they're still going to keep 114 settlements in the West Bank, and they're going to keep and they're going to keep the water up there in the Golan Heights. So, what's in it for the Palestinians here? What do you think is going to play out?
Well, it's a test of them taking back this area.
Yeah.
Taking it back. You question whether or not who owned it in the first place anyhow. And I won't
forget
the biblical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Indian Removal Act of 1830, where we had a president in our country taking land away from the Cherokees and the Seminoles in Florida, and we're telling people we need to give back land. Well, maybe we ought to start in our own backyard and give back to the Native American Indians.
We ought to discuss that quickly about the historical ramifications of that. There's some ultra-conservative Israeli people that are, in their religion, they believe that this land was given to them by God.
That's true.
Now, what's interesting to me, being a non-Jew, is the fact that it was given to them by Abraham.
Yeah, God gave it to Abraham.
Okay, well, Abraham also is one of the founders of the Muslim religion too, isn't it? Is it not?
Because of his illegal son Ishmael.
Oh my God! Okay, so here's two different religions claiming that this land was given to them by God. Pretty interesting. Okay, so what's the story here? Are we going now? Former premier, or what is he? Netanyahu.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he says that it's going to just make a place for all of these Palestinian terrorists to congregate in the Gaza now that they've got an open way there without any Israel settlements there. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm more concerned with the Ayman are saying about the fact that terrorism works, and this has proved it by their acts of terrorism.
Isn't this a self-fulfilling prophecy? Isn't he wishing that that's going to happen, or what?
Well, this is a test now of the Palestinian government to see if they can coexist now with Israel based on this token, if you would, maybe not a token in some people's mind,
sure,
but the relinquishing of this beachfront property along the Mediterranean.
Yeah, because they're really pumping it in the major press about the don't take my land, and these poor Israelis, the settlers that have been there for 40 years, whatever, since '67 anyway.
That's true.
Right, and some of them, and they took their land. And it kind of reminds you of eminent domain and what happened here in this country with our Supreme Court recently.
Private property for a public purpose.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to solve that problem today, but it's an extremely good issue to get in, and we invite our viewers to get out there and really look into the details, because it's not being shown on the press and the major press about what's being left there, what is being taken away, and what's going to happen. We certainly hope that the Palestinians don't want to do any more terrorist activities. That would be a good thing, and it would be probably pretty nice if the Israelis would open up a few more of those settlements than the 4 they're taking out in the northern part of the West Bank.
Well, Ron, we're not going to have to wait too long to find out, because the Palestinians are having their election January 25th, I believe. Right. So let's see how much of an impact Hamas has, and whether or not their current president is going to be able to retain his seat.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say that if for any reason the Palestinians decide to go and run terrorism out of the Gaza Strip, they're going to find that they're going to be reoccupied almost instantaneously. So let's move on to the next in the crosshairs issue.
Okay, let's talk about what's going on in the war in Iraq.
Okay.
Now, they just finally completed the beginning, if you will, of their constitution. Right. Was the deadline. They need a couple days now to iron out some 20 sticking points, of which I think there's a couple of them that are major.
Right.
And the way I understand it is that of the provinces, it will go down to defeat if any 3 provinces vote no. And the Sunnis have kept themselves out of the process. Mm-hmm. So if they control 4 of the provinces within this new country. Mm-hmm. So if 3 of those 4 vote no, then this constitution isn't going anywhere.
I heard it was like 2/3 though.
There's a 2/3 requirement. The vote requirement is 2/3.
Okay. Now that's in the affirmative, not in the negative. In other words,
in the affirmative, that's correct.
Okay, so you need a 2/3 vote of all the people in order to agree to the new constitution.
That's true.
All right. Now, the thing that I think has been on everybody's mind is the fact that we've lost, 1,860 some people over there in 2 or 3 years now that we've been.
You know, Ron, you look at the TV media that exists today.
Right.
If we had the same kind of coverage in the Second World War, who knows what would have happened?
Right.
We lost more men than that, I think, men and women, just on the Normandy invasion. So I don't know. Losing one sailor soldier Marine is one too many.
That's for sure.
Losing one is one too many. The bigger concern is there really an exit strategy for the United States? Can we walk away now, or is there going to be a civil war in that country?
You know, here's my problem. Here's the problem I have with it, because you've got people like Cindy Sheehan and all the groups, the MoveOn.org and Al Franken and all of the counterculture people, I call them. At any rate, they're all saying, you know, we should be out of there. Well, where were they calling? Why aren't they calling for being out of there when they're talking about Yugoslavia? I mean, that's like, doesn't count. I mean, all these other locations around the country and around the world, they don't have any problems with us being there. But in this particular issue, where we went in and made a tremendous change in the whole government of the country, that's way out of sorts. Why can't we be there? In other words, if we're not going to be in Iraq, we shouldn't be anywhere, should we?